Let me tell you, you've never truly woken up until you hear 15 tons of wet concrete and arrogance come crashing down on a century of your family's legacy at 6:30 in the damn morning. There's just something about watching your grandfather's hand-laid 1923 stone bridge get obliterated by a cement truck, then looking up to see the queen of the HOA, Marjorie Whitman herself, standing there in a white blazer laughing like it's some punchline to a joke, only she's in on. "Oops," she says, sneering. "Those old rocks weren't built for real trucks, honey." You know what stings the most? She thought it was just a funny accident, maybe even a little poetic. But the real joke, she had no idea she'd just tripped a wire I'd spent months rigging. See every heavy truck, every tiny new crack, every smug little HOA memo. I documented all of it all before she even got her morning latte. And that bridge, it wasn't just a family relic, it was the only legal road into her whole precious gated community. So when her own cement mixer broke it, the hammer came down hard. I didn't just watch my legacy crumble, I turned her arrogance into the perfect trap, and she walked right into it. If you want to see how the big dogs trip on their own leashes, well, keep listening. Let me rewind about 3 months, show you how the chessboard got set. Name's Roman Kellerman, by the way. I'm 52, retired civil engineer, traded blueprints for hand tools a few years back. My grandfather left me 12 acres of Pennsylvania paradise crowned by a fieldstone bridge over Willow Creek. He built that thing himself in 1923, stone by stone, with nothing but calloused hands and a stubborn streak that could outlast a glacier. Every morning at 6 sharp, I'd stand on that bridge mug of black coffee, warming my hands, listening to the creek gurgle underneath. You'd hear red-winged blackbirds chattering, catch a whiff of fresh sawdust drifting over from the old barn, now my workshop. There's a magic to that place. My grandfather spent 7 years on that bridge. 7. Hand-mixing mortar, picking the perfect stone, double-checking every calculation with nothing but a slide rule and an unshakable faith that things made right last. He built it for 15 tons tops, designed for tractors and hay wagons, not today's industrial monsters. His blueprints still live in my shop, soft as old linen, yellowed around the edges, faintly smelling of machine oil and history. You need to understand that bridge is the only way on or off my land, all around protected wetlands. So you want to reach Kellerman territory, you cross my bridge, no exceptions. And then like a hurricane in heels along came Marjorie, 60-ish blonde bob so sharp it could slice bread Whitman Realty plates on her BMW. She moved into Millbrook Heights 3 years ago and immediately started her crusade to become HOA president. Her first welcome gift, a certified violation notice about my grandfather's barn, said it needed to be painted community-approved beige for neighborhood aesthetics. I explained politely about the barn's history and family value. Big mistake. Next morning, she's at my door, that blazer still crisp in 90% humidity, smile colder than an ice storm. "Roman, some people just don't understand modern property values. Maybe you'd be happier somewhere more rustic." The way she said rustic made it sound like a communicable disease. Millbrook Heights is 47 homes wrapped around my land like a noose. Most neighbors appreciate what I do, even buy my custom furniture. But Marjorie, she ran the 5-member HOA board with a mix of real estate muscle, legal intimidation, and carefully whispered threats. 3 families already sold out after getting daily violation notices for things like mailbox height or grass growing an inch too tall. My next-door neighbor, Agnes Bellamy, retired librarian sharp as a tack, warned me about Marjorie's tactics. Tyler and Beth Rodriguez, young couple down the lane, quietly sympathized but kept their heads down. Then Marjorie started showing potential investors around my property, talking about luxury condos, where my workshop stood, executive homes, where my grandfather's apple orchard bloomed. Her grand vision needed just one stubborn engineer out of the way. Enter Derek Whitman, her nephew, owner of Pinnacle Construction, built like a linebacker, business ethics of a loan shark. When the HOA hired him to build the new clubhouse, he realized that cutting across my bridge saved each cement truck a 20-minute detour. So one Monday morning, 7 a.m., I'm out with my coffee soaking in the peace when I hear it rumble, groan, crack. Derek's 25-ton cement mixer is rolling across my grandfather's bridge like it's an interstate. I walk over, coffee mug in hand, sawdust still clinging to my apron. "Excuse me. This is private property weight limits posted." Derek barely looks up from his clipboard. Marjorie cleared it. Got a problem? Take it up with her. And there it was. Watching those ancient stones crack under the weight, I realized this wasn't just about construction shortcuts. This was systematic, designed to break me down, force me to sell. But here's the twist. Engineers don't panic. We document, we measure, we plan. And I'd already started laying my trap. Derek's first crossing was just the appetizer. Within days, he turned my bridge into his personal Highway 4, sometimes 6 cement mixers a day, each double the bridge's safe capacity. The rumble and clatter was relentless. My workshop shook so badly delicate furniture joints I'd spent weeks on began splitting. 3 months of careful joinery gone in a morning reduced to splinters. That's when I got serious. I installed security cameras on the bridge, started a photo log, every crack, every loose stone, every truck ignoring posted limits. My grandfather always said, measure twice, cut once. Well, I was measuring 3 times and documenting everything. Then I spent 6 hours in the courthouse basement, breathing dust and bureaucracy, combing through deeds. Jackpot the Bridge by county record was for my exclusive use. No one else had any vehicular rights. Marjorie's community necessity argument was complete fiction. I delivered a cease and desist to both her and Derek, polite, professional, legally bulletproof. Derek crumpled it and tossed it into his trash without reading. Marjorie's reply, public shaming on Facebook. Some residents are prioritizing personal convenience over community progress. Right. Personal convenience, like not wanting your grandfather's life's work bulldozed for a new HOA clubhouse. And then the real fun started. The community fractured. Agnes dropped by with cookies and support. Tyler and Beth sent apologetic texts they cared but feared HOA backlash. Most support was private silent. Meanwhile, Marjorie's investor buddies went online painting me as the bad guy blocking progress. But the bridge was literally cracking under pressure, sagging at the center hairline fractures, spreading like spider webs. That's when I started weighing Derek's trucks, borrowing portable scales. Posted limit 15 tons. Actual load 35, sometimes 40 tons. That's not just trespass, that's premeditated destruction. Dr. Patricia Wong, structural engineer for historic sites, checked it out. Mr. Kellerman, your bridge is sound for 15 tons, but this loading pattern will cause catastrophic failure in 6 to 8 weeks. Meanwhile, Derek started getting creative. Trucks at midnight fences accidentally knocked down fresh tire gouges through my lawn. Each incident, one more line in my legal file. Here's the thing, when you mess with engineers, we don't just get angry, we get methodical. Marjorie, for her part, decided to fight fire with a nuclear bomb. She reported me to the county claiming my bridge was a public hazard. The county inspector, Tom Bradley, shows up, pokes around, photographs new cracks that didn't exist until Derek's trucks arrived. Marjorie stands back, oozing satisfaction. Inspector Bradley says, we'll need a certified structural assessment before deciding if public safety is compromised. Public safety on my private bridge. I show him my file. Those cracks are from illegal trucks. He just shrugs, says they'll restrict heavy vehicle access for now. Marjorie tries for an Oscar. But what about emergency vehicles, school buses? Never mind, the bridge only leads to my place. No buses, no emergencies unless you count the daily assault on my sanity. But here's where decades of permit battles paid off. I hired Dr. Wong, again paid out of pocket, for the structural report. She documented everything. Localized stress damage consistent with loading beyond design parameters. Bridge sound for intended capacity. All damage correlates to overweight crossings. Translation. Derek's trucks, Marjorie's orders. I upgraded my cameras, night vision, motion sensors, the whole 9 yards. Derek, he doubled down. Trucks at 2 a.m., engines roaring, brakes, hissing, spotlights glaring. My mailbox got clipped so often I bought replacements wholesale. The original boundary stones my grandfather carved started vanishing. One morning I found cement mixer tracks through the oak grove he'd planted the year I was born. The stench of diesel and upturned earth made me sick. And Marjorie. She cranked up the psychological warfare. Coffee meetings became tribunals about my dangerous obsession. Emergency HOA meeting, 27 homeowners, Marjorie delivering a PowerPoint about the community access crisis. Agnes stood up, bless her. That bridge predates all of this. Romans defending legitimate property rights. Tyler suggested finding alternatives. But Marjorie's side steamrolled the conversation, painting me as the one blocking progress. The vote went her way barely. But what Marjorie didn't know was that Sarah Martinez, a local reporter, was quietly recording the meeting. She started digging into who stood to profit. And then came the game changer, cross-referencing Derek's truck logs with official transport records. His report said 15 tons, my scales said 40. That's federal transportation fraud. And suddenly, Marjorie wasn't just picking on the wrong engineer, she was digging her own grave. 3 days after the county inspection, a certified letter landed on my porch, notice of intent to sue. Marjorie, on behalf of the HOA, threatened me for interference with legitimate commercial operations. Her theory, Derek's trucks had been using my bridge for so long they'd earned a legal right by adverse possession of easement. I read the filing to my lawyer, Rebecca Walsh. The silence was so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, she said, "Roman, this is legally insane. She's arguing that breaking into your house gives her the deed. But fighting nonsense costs money. Marjorie was betting I'd surrender to avoid the legal fees. She'd picked the wrong stubborn bastard." Meanwhile, Derek's crews amped up the harassment generators, blaring at midnight driveways, blocked fake safety complaints to my furniture customers, anonymous calls sabotaging my business. Even fake pizza deliveries at dinner time, childish but relentless. And then, in a stroke of overreaching genius, Marjorie called for eminent domain. She discovered some arcane law that lets HOAs petition the county for private property if it's essential community infrastructure. My bridge leading only to my land. The community center was packed. Marjorie rolled out another PowerPoint traffic analysis, economic impact. Agnes stood up, slicing through the noise. "This is legalized theft." Tyler and Beth added their voices. "Our kids play by Roman's Creek, he never complained. This feels wrong." But Marjorie had whipped up her base. The vote authorized her to explore eminent domain. After the meeting, Agnes found me in the parking lot. "Roman, more people support you than you realize. They're just scared." And that night, combing through my security footage, I hit pay dirt. Derek's trucks weren't just overweight, they were uninsured. No commercial insurance, no DOT permits, nothing. Add that to federal fraud and Marjorie's empire was teetering. Couldn't sleep, so I went back to the courthouse hunting for anything I'd missed. What I found at 2:47 a.m. was dynamite. A 1923 permit stating my bridge included utility easements for water power and telecom. Every line serving Millbrook Heights ran through my bridge. If it collapsed, the whole community would lose everything. Rerouting would cost upwards of $400,000 and take months of permits. And then came the cherry on top. Marjorie's own investor pitch decks, now public record, promising guaranteed utility access for Phase 2 of her development. She'd been raising millions on infrastructure she didn't own and had been actively destroying. Securities fraud, asset misrepresentation, her house of cards was about to topple. I filed for historical heritage status, adding another regulatory barricade to any repair attempts. And while Marjorie was busy plotting, I installed steel barriers, hidden anchor points from 1923, still rock solid, designed by my grandfather for exactly this kind of fight. Modern steel slid in like it was meant to be there. Every sensor, every camera, every file was ready. Sarah, the reporter, uncovered 4 other families in Pennsylvania who'd lost their properties to similar HOA tactics. This wasn't personal, it was a business model. Agnes rallied the neighborhood, 18 people at her house, venting about years of intimidation. Dr. Wong installed real-time stress monitoring, predicted total bridge failure in 5 days if the trucks kept rolling. EPA violations for creek contamination, check. County, state, and federal agencies all on speed dial. My documentation was a war chest, photos, sensor logs, recorded threats, legal filings, all cross-referenced and time-stamped. My grandfather's chisels watched over it all like guardian angels. And then one Tuesday morning at 6:30 it happened. Marjorie's world exploded in slow motion. Derek's cement mixer barreled onto the bridge cameras, rolling alarms blaring. The stonework failed. 15 tons of concrete and steel thundered into Willow Creek. Utilities snapped, 47 homes went dark. Marjorie's white BMW skidded into my drive, panic painted on her face. Derek stood in the creek boots, hardening in concrete. Sarah and her photographer showed up in time to capture the chaos. Marjorie sputtered. Roman should have maintained his bridge. I handed Inspector Bradley my 3-month documentation bomb. Average load 38 tons on a 15-ton bridge. Here's every violation. Here's the environmental damage. Here's the federal fraud. Derek turned ghost white. The county commissioner arrived, saw the utility conduits ripped out, calculated the costs, $400,000, minimum 18 months for emergency rerouting, and Marjorie's $1 million development dead in the water. 40 neighbors watched as Karma delivered its invoice. Derek's mixer became a monument to stupidity, slowly sinking into the creek. 3 days later, the emergency town hall was standing room only. Marjorie's lawyer tried to paint it as an accident. Rebecca played the footage, the weight logs, the threats, the investor pitches. Neighbors spoke up, Agnes, Tyler, Beth. Then the environmental report came in. 3 months of diesel and cement wash turned Willow Creek into a disaster zone. $200,000 to clean it up. The numbers kept piling up. Marjorie's face turned gray as storm clouds. Sarah asked, "How do you justify promising investors infrastructure you didn't own while systematically destroying it?" Marjorie cracked. Roman was obstructing progress. I unrolled my grandfather's blueprints, told the room. This bridge was built for the future. Mrs. Whitman destroyed not just a family legacy, but the backbone of her own project. Rebecca began listing the lawsuits, restraining orders, criminal charges, federal transportation fraud, investor fraud, nearly $850,000 in damages, not counting environmental penalties. Commissioner Haynes closed it out. Liability for Millbrook Heights HOA now exceeds $2.3 million. 6 months later, I'm standing on a brand new bridge crafted by local artisans funded by the settlement. Marjorie bankrupt. Real estate license suspended, facing prison time for fraud. Derek construction license gone. Cement mixers auctioned, 2 years in minimum security for federal crimes. HOA leadership flipped. Agnes now president, protecting heritage instead of bulldozing it. Property values rose. The bridge became a county landmark. My furniture business boomed, and community ties, real ties, grew stronger. I started a trade scholarship teaching the old ways. The creek ran clear again, wildlife returned, and my morning coffee on that bridge tasted like victory. And the lesson, it came slow, late, and a little bittersweet. See, in the end, my grandfather wasn't just building a bridge. He was building leverage. He was thinking generations ahead. The trap wasn't just for people like Marjorie. It was for the idea that power and intimidation can ever outlast preparation and integrity. You can bully a man, but you can't bully a blueprint that survived 100 years. Now Derek's mixer sits rusting in the creek. Kids play on it, tourists snap photos, and the whole neighborhood remembers what happens when arrogance meets engineering. The story's not just about revenge, it's about the kind of justice that feels like cool water after a long drought. I kept my land, my bridge, and my peace of mind, but more than that, I helped my community remember what's worth fighting for. But you know, there's always a catch. Justice took down Marjorie, sure, but what if the law had been just a hair different? What if nobody had documented, had proof, or a century-old engineering secret? Where's the line between protecting what's yours and standing in the way of progress? Or is that just a word? The powerful used to excuse themselves. Let's settle it in the comments. Where do you stand? Was I right? Was Marjorie just doing her job? Is there ever a good excuse for crossing the line? Ever been on either side of a fight like this? I want to hear your stories. Because in the end, sometimes the only thing more satisfying than karma is sharing it.